Good morning. What a sunny, wonderful, glorious Thursday morning it is. My name is Kobe Flatt, and for the next hour, we are going to go through our GPP3O, the Leadership and Peer Support class. We are coming to the end of our third week of our 9-week radio Zoom schedule. Since I was not in the studio on Tuesday and we missed that class, we're going to make up that class tomorrow. Not usual for us to broadcast on Fridays. As you know, we like to leave those for you to have a chance to get caught up in any coursework. But thank you for being patient and bearing with me and allowing me to do that tomorrow. It will be posted to our Google Classroom in case you're not not able to tune in and follow us at that time. It will also be recorded and posted to our WASA YouTube channel. So if you can't listen live, you can find it in those two places, and we'll just continue where we leave off from today. Today we're looking at Lesson 8. We are talking about working in groups, where we will learn about group dynamics and strategies for success. Should we get through all this course material today, we will move into Lesson 9 tomorrow. Our learning goals for today and our Lesson 8 working in groups is that we can describe the advantages of working in groups. We'll also be able to explain the stages of group development and lastly identify team building strategies. We will know we have met these goals when we can say I can describe how individuals can be effective members of groups. If you're following along in your IL course booklet, we are on page 18 of Lesson 8, the Unit 2 material, where we learn that working well within groups makes up a very important part of a person's interpersonal and relationship skills. These interpersonal and relationship skills are what we are basing this course material on. We want to learn how to use interpersonal skills, how to work and grow relations so that we can be contributing members, so that we can be effective peer supporters and great leaders. We work collectively all the time. Examples can range from a friendly game of basketball to school group projects to working at a job. Even your family is a group. Your circle of friends are a group of strangers that find themselves working together. For instance, helping to push out a stuck motorist. These are all examples of group work, and so you might not think that you are involved in a group because you don't play a sport. You might think you're not part of a team because you work in a cubicle. There is group work happening all the time, whether you are consciously aware of it or not. A cooperative and productive group can achieve much more than the sum of the group of the members' individual accomplishments. We want to focus on the importance of group work and how one can achieve so much more when working together, when you are a part of something greater than you. Going back to Lesson 2, when we talked about identifying skills and interests, we spoke to the Government of Canada's 9 essential skills that were listed. One of them posted right there is collaboration. It's so important to be able to work as a team. It is a transferable skill that you can take whether you're on the ice playing hockey, in the boardroom working on a project, or with your family trying to plan how to create the menu for Christmas dinner. It is an essential skill that we want to look at and recognize and grow in. So, a cooperative and productive group can achieve more than the sum of the group's members' individual accomplishments. We can recognize, especially now that we've done all of our self-assessments in Unit 1, that we are great at some things, we have strengths towards certain things, and weaknesses towards certain things. It's great to acknowledge it so that we can use it to help us better our surroundings, our work, our projects, our efficiency. In your IL booklet, it talks about the final result of 5 students working collectively on a project will be greater and better than the collection of all their separate products. Similarly, a well-conducted orchestra will always sound better than all of its musicians playing individually. If you can play cohesively, learning each other sound and working off of it, you will have a better overall sound than if you were to just try to do it yourself. It then goes on in our IL booklet to talk about another example of effective group work in this amazing cultural tradition that takes place in Spain known as human towers. If you haven't seen or come across these human towers, this tradition, I highly recommend you take a few minutes and you watch some YouTube clips, watch some videos, read some articles on it. It is a more than 200-year-old custom in Spain. Villages and small towns compete to build the highest human towers. Winning brings great pride and honor, and the men from the villages will practice year-round for the competition. Since then, it has grown and expanded and involved other villages and communities coming together, and now they have like this national human tower competition. I'm going to show you a little bit of it just as a visual, how all of the different members, no matter how great or how small, help to make this task achievable. In the IL booklet, it talks about the men practicing year-round, how the biggest, strongest, and heaviest men stand at the bottom, lighter men climb on their shoulders, and level by level, a human tower is constructed. At the top, you've got the lightest and the best climbers. They're often young boys who form the peak. You're going to see that this tradition has now grown and become a huge thing and includes men, women, and children. It is a...
Introducing Chewy is the...
Sorry, I'm going to pause that for a second. It is pretty incredible to see that they do still work on it year after year. They want to go for the title. And it's my understanding that there's still not a monetary prize to be won from it from the articles that I read. But it is truly for pride. They take amazing pride in their culture and teamwork and ability to work as a group to accomplish this. The article that I'm going to read first shows how the cultural pride has grown. It shows how now it's become this incredible event with all of these different teams entering. So in Tarragona, Spain, dozens of people squeeze together, and I'm going to show you the video clip so you can see how truly tight-knit of a group they are. The stronger the foundation they build, the less likely their human tower will collapse. Children will climb to the top, and they can create 8, 9, and the one in our YouTube clip that we're going to watch today is truly a 10-story high tower out of human bodies. They wear these sashes around their torsos to help with grip, to help with climbing. You'll notice in the YouTube video, one of the men, he's chewing on the lapel of his shirt, gritting his teeth to keep himself from buckling. With maximum concentration, they look into each other's eyes, seeking further support. You will see how they use each other physically, mentally, for that support, for that emotional piece that we were talking yesterday, for the mental piece, and how they do practice all year. They plan it. They have truly these blueprints of structures the shape that they're going to build, who's going to go where, how they're going to make it to the top. Looking at some of these pictures from this article from AP News, you can see how tightly woven these bodies are, that they might not all like each other. They might not all be invited to each other's birthday parties and hang out. But when it comes to accomplishing this task, they put it all aside and are truly on top of one another for the singular purpose of getting highest tower. The tradition of building human towers or castells in Catalan dates to the 18th century. It's part of their culture. It started to compete for building the tallest and most complicated towers. Now there are festivals still continuing across Spain. It's interesting to note that there are a lot of different cultures that actually have this as part of their traditions. They do them to symbolize pride that they feel for their land, their language, their history. It means they are in it together, and if united, they are capable of amazing feats. It is truly awe-inspiring to see the different bodies and ages and practice that goes into it. There's an interview with one of these young 11-year-old girls who says that she goes to rehearsals, they go to practice to learn how to do it effectively. It's not just, hey, you want to come out tomorrow and do this thing with us, it'll be fun. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time. You can see from the pictures from the AP News article that you couldn't fit a cracker between these individuals. They are so tightly woven for safety. They've done, it's science behind it, that the larger the base, the more absorption for when or if the tower comes down. So I'm just going to play a piece of it so you can see how they all come together.
Cuando estás ahí arriba, tampoco tienes tiempo de mirar abajo. Miro adelante y ya está. No sé, no pienso en mirar
So
abajo.
here's the
Pienso en hacer
11-year-old
café,
girl.
la
She's
faena y
saying
ya
we
está.
all come together, you just focus on the task at hand.
13-year-old Teresa Carbó has a special hobby. She's been climbing human towers for 4 years. Now she's facing a real challenge. Tarragona, Spain, hosts the World Human Pyramid Championships. Called castells, this is more than sport here. It's an expression of Catalan national identity. 12 teams are in the finals. Faust Sanchez competes in the Castellers de Vilafranca club.
Para mí ser parte de los Castellers de Vilafranca es un orgullo. Mi abuelo ya empezó con
Talks
esto.
about pride, he
Toda
talks
mi
about the
familia ha pasado por
generations of
aquí,
his
mi
family
padre
who have been
también.
involved.
Es una cosa que he hecho desde pequeñito. Tengo aquí mis verdaderos amigos. Es una cosa que no puedo
They've
dejar.
formed friendships,
The human
community.
tower tradition began in Tarragona in the 18th century. Rival groups competed for the best shapes, which over time grew taller and taller. The first World Championship was in 1932. The castells have had UNESCO World Heritage status since 2010.
No hay mucho riesgo, parece que haya mucho porque claro, suben muchos pisos y es muy...
So I encourage you to check it out to see teamwork at its finest, how they utilize every member from old to small, from large to young. They really work together to plan who goes where. And I'm going to see actually if I can find the part of the clip where you can see the concentration of the people on the bottom who say that they don't know what's going on above them. Their job is simply to stand there, stand strong, stand firm. And they have these musicians off to the sides who, depending on the tone of their playing, lets you know how high the tower is getting. They start when the base is formed, and so the people on the bottom have an idea sort of how much longer they have to hold out for. They can hear from the music rising that they're almost at the top. Once they get to the top, it's really quick. I don't know if you noticed, but The smallest child makes it to the top, waves their hand, and then they start to come down. That's it. They don't have to pose, they don't have to hold it for a certain amount of time. They just have to make it to the top, do the wave, and that lets the judges know that they're complete, and then they start to climb down successfully. If you saw part of the clip, a lot of times it's not successful and they do come crashing down, which is why they make the children wear the helmets for safety. But the pain that you can see in the faces of some of them at the bottom, and the fact that they are still doing it and standing strong to be part of something greater than themselves, that they take it. They are willing to suffer through the physical pain in order to contribute to the greater goal of the tower being successful. I can't find it right now, but I will post the link on our Google Classroom so that you can go through and watch a few of them. I will warn you, you might go down a rabbit hole. I ended up seeing competitions from the last 5 years and really found myself rooting for them at the end. The one team who's interviewed here, they've held the title for 12 years. So it's pretty impressive. There are so many advantages to being part of a group. It's an effective way to combine the talents of the individuals that make up the group for one common purpose. We know that when members contribute their strengths, whether it's their muscles, their climbing ability, their organizational skills, everybody's role is valued, including the strongest or the wisest or the youngest and the lightest, to use our human pyramid example. In contrast to the human tower example, a collection of people working in the same room or on the same project does not necessarily make a productive group. Just because you've assembled a few people to complete a task doesn't make it successful. We want to focus on how it needs effort and work to be put into it in order to get successful results. Throwing people together, if they are not properly managed, often yields unsuccessful results. If you can get a group together to work together and help one another, you will have better chance of success. If there's division amongst group members, and they begin to compete against each other, they're putting their own goals above the goals of the group, you're not going to make it very far, you're not going to last very long. To use the example of the human tower, it will crumble quickly. A successful group may be formed from individuals that normally don't work together or they don't know each other well. If the group is properly managed and has direction, they can still be successful. A good group is well coordinated. It consists of individuals that cooperate, and every member has a role. People in the group should know the purpose of the group, its priorities, and their individual roles. Just like when we created goals in Unit 1, when you have clear goals set, you yield clear results. When everybody has a clear picture and understanding of what the group's goal or aim is, then you have a way higher chance of success. Groups are an effective way to combine the talents of individuals that make up the group for one common purpose. This is especially useful if the task that is being carried out is unfamiliar to any or parts of the group. The larger skill and knowledge resources of a group, they have a larger advantage over the individual who's attempting to do the same. A group is better able to be innovative, creative, and original than the individual. It's better to be able to overcome challenges and unexpected problems because you can combine resources of all the members of the group when needed. If you have a problem and you're stuck, you can brainstorm a few, but you're still limited to your own perspective, experience, and knowledge. When you bring in other individuals, you get their collective experiences, knowledge, and it can help you to grow, which is great for the group. But then, as the individual, watching and learning can help the individual to grow for next time to be able to continue to be a contributing member of a group. They can work off of their experiences of this is something I faced before. I wasn't sure, but another team member had suggested this and we found it really worked. What if I build off that and now we try this? And it opens new avenues. In a group, each individual is better able to use their talents and abilities than if they were to work on their own. And this is because each person can be focused on one part of the group's activities. Instead of needing to do everything by themselves, think of every aspect and complete every little task, you only need to take a piece of it and focus on it, knowing that your group members are covering the rest. It's most useful when the individual's concentration is directed at their personal area of strength. When you're trying to complete a project, there are many moving parts. We know that we are not great at everything. We've conducted our self-assessments and we've found our weaknesses. So if you can have somebody who is strong in the areas that you are weak, you can focus on what you're good at, then you've got the motivation, you've got the confidence, you've got the skill and ability to do it, and someone else is worrying about the rest. Think of a situation in which a project involves the building of a model, a written explanation of the model, and a presentation to the class. So we'll say, here's your big project, you have to do these 3 parts. Working on your own, one person would have to focus on all the different parts. You have to focus on building the model, writing the explanation, and then presenting it to the class. But what if you had a group of 3 and you were assigned a larger version of the same project? Each person can work in their area of greatest strength. For example, the person with the strongest speaking skills would take on the presentation portion. The person with the best reading and writing skills would work on the write-up. The model could be built by the person who has the best hands-on skills. All members can contribute to the other tasks, enriching the final result. Each person can work where they are most useful, making both the individual and the group more productive overall. If a problem is encountered by any one of the parts, the others can step up, problem solve, work together to resolve it, and then go back. You can work individually while working as part of a team. We're going to get into how this looks as we go through a learning model and talk about the benefits of independent work inside of a large group. When working in a group, there exists the added stability of having shared decision-making and responsibility. No success or failure can be placed on the shoulders of a single person. You have less pressure when you know the responsibility falls on others, those around you, than just yourself. More than one perspective exists within the group, giving it additional reliability. We want to know that when there are more individuals coming together for a project, that you don't have to make all the decisions. You don't have to take all of the burden upon you. When you have shared decision making in a group, it reinforces each individual's sense of worth and authority. Failure is less likely because every member has to monitor the other's progress and results. They get to pool their resources. They get to take from knowledge and experience that others have. When we look at group advantages, we are looking at the ability to overcome challenges and expected problems, the ability to combine resources. There's a better use of talents and there's better focus because everybody has their own individual tasks that contribute to the greater good. With more than one perspective, additional reliability exists because you have everybody participating, everybody contributing. You then get reinforced individual worth. When you're working on your strength, we talked about that confidence, we talked about that motivator, and you have the ability to be successful, then you feel like a contributing member who is worth because you're pulling your weight. When everybody feels this way, it contributes to success. When you have lots of people working together, it ensures accountability. You have access to more resources, whether it's physical resources or knowledge. You have more to tap into when you have more people with you, which leads to greater motivation and allows for greater achievement. Looking at it now from group development perspective, a group assembled for any purpose works best when each member works towards a shared goal. In order for this to happen, members must share resources. We know that one of the advantages is that you have access to perspective, resources, past experiences. So then when you're part of a team, you have to be able to share that. It's important that you motivate one another. If you like the praise for doing a job well done, remember to pay it forward, pass it along. Help encourage the others of your team. When somebody comes with a problem, don't say that's a you problem, not a me problem. Think about how you can work on it together. We want that shared goal. In order for success to happen, every individual piece needs to be successful. So that means not leaving a team member hanging out to dry, saying you need to figure it out. I did my piece, you have to do your piece. We want to motivate one another and hold each other accountable. If you see that a member is not doing their part, build them up. Say, remember, in order for this to work, we all have to be doing this, so we're going to need you to meet that deadline, whatever it may be. But then on the other hand, if you're going to hold somebody else accountable, you need to be open to others coming to you, saying, we're going to need you to meet that deadline. You must be open to constructive criticism. If you're going to give it, be sure you can receive it, knowing that it comes from a place of respect, understanding. We all have the same goal, so we're not saying this to be mean, we're saying it because we want to be successful. You need to keep that open mind. Additionally, when you have a shared goal, it's very important to keep in mind that each member must place the common goal ahead of their own. You have to put aside your idea of what it should look like and instead focus on the agreed upon goal that everybody contributed and said together. You also need to be able to give up a small part of your individuality. This means that relinquish some of that control. You need to be able to say that's not how I would have done it, but it works and it's okay. And you have to, in a group, often bite your tongue when it's for the greater good. And you have to work at pushing aside some of your feelings, bending some of the control that you would have done if you were by yourself. When you can do this, you recognize that group work is as valuable as any of the other previously mentioned advantages. Group work brings people together. The group dynamics contribute to our social and relational skills. Members learn to cooperate, to respect each other, to value differing opinions. Even when discussions are intense and issues can be contentious, a cooperative group will deal with it effectively, contributing to the conflict resolution or anger management skills of each member. We are going to expand on these specific skills later on in our course, where we go through conflict resolution and anger management, because it's very important to recognize that it can come up and it can happen, and feelings are real and we have to address our feelings, but sometimes you have to bend them, you have to know how to control them so that you have conflict resolution. Now, since each member of the group naturally contributes skills and expertise connected to their personal strengths, their sense of accomplishment and success in general will increase, which then enriches self-esteem, self-confidence, and gives you the tools that you need to continue into the next project. A group assembled for any purpose, such as a major school project, a sports team, workplace, doesn't matter what it is. We talked about all the different groups and how that looks. They work best when each member places the group's goals ahead of their own. We talked about how we want that to be through shared resources, motivating, accountability, constructive criticism. We want to see now how the team can be successful when this happens and what happens when it's not. This brings us to the Tuckman model. Bruce Tuckman was an American psychological researcher. He came up with Tuckman's stages of group development. Now, this was published in 1965 and was built upon research surrounding group dynamics. Tuckman specialized in group behavior. Through observation, he developed this theory that describes how groups evolve. His model says that there are 5 stages. In order to progress through the stages, you needed communication skills and conflict resolution skills. His 5 stages are forming, storming, norming, performing, and then later he added adjourning. So adjourning is a 5th skill that's sometimes called mourning, and it wraps up his model of group development. So that you don't have to listen to me all the time. There is a quick summary on
Welcome
YouTube.
to the world's fastest product demo.
Once we
a
finish
query running
this
over 42
ad,
billion rows.
we're going to get a synopsis of Tuckman's theory.
In a perfect world, new team members would work effortlessly together from day one. They would get along, communicate well, and productively focus on the team's mission. Unfortunately, we live in the real world. And as we know, it takes time for teams to reach peak effectiveness. Psychologist Bruce Tuckman first identified 4 stages of team formation in the mid-60s. These are forming, storming, norming, and performing. They describe the process teams go through as people form bonds and learn to work together effectively. In the forming stage, most team members are positive and polite, but some of them might feel anxious. During this period, people make an effort to get to know each other. The next stage is storming. At this time, people push against boundaries. There's often conflict around personalities and different working styles as people become frustrated with one another's differences in approach. Some people might even question the team's goals and avoid taking on tasks. Some teams never make it past the storming stage. The third stage is norming. This is when people start to resolve their differences, build on one another's strengths, and respect you as a leader. The last stage is performing. Your team members reach this stage when they're able to achieve the group's goal without friction. As a leader at this stage, you can delegate more work and spend time developing each person to be the best they can be. Most teams go through each of these stages, and there's a lot you can do as a leader to speed the process up and help your people get to the performing stage faster. To learn more about guiding...
So there was a super quick synopsis on Tuckman's model, which we're going to get into a little bit more, but at least you have the background for. The YouTube clip just covered the first 4 stages, but again, acknowledging as we go through here, I want to point out the 5th stage that he came up with. So looking a little bit more in depth here, the first stage is forming. This is when the group first comes together. It's the major task for the group members at this stage, which concerns orientation. What is the job of the group? Who does what? What are we working towards? How are we going to get there? Group members attempt to become oriented to one another. Now, this stage, it's brand new. It's like the beginning of a relationship, and everybody's still polite. They're in the honeymoon phase. They want to avoid conflict. They attempt to learn more about other members in the group. They'll subconsciously look for similarities and differences. They will begin to form preferences for future relationships. Individuals themselves tend to be guarded in their own opinions as they're getting a feeling for the group. They don't want to embarrass themselves, they don't want to have a label placed on themselves, so they're sitting back, they're observant, they're in the wait and see phase. This is particularly so in terms of the more nervous or subordinate members. We know that some people have a tendency to be leaders and they step up and take charge. So specifically, the more nervous, shy, subordinate members will take on these behaviors. Groups who are in this stage of forming typically defer decisions to a large extent to those who emerge as the leaders and look to them for guidance and direction. In order to grow from this stage to the next, each member must relinquish the comfort of non-threatening topics and risk the possibility of conflict in order to become more productive. We know it's going to happen, so it's important that we acknowledge it and learn how to get past it. So that brings us to stage 2. This is called storming, and it's characterized by competition and conflict in personal relations in the task functions dimension. As the group members attempt to organize for the task, conflict will inevitably result in their personal relations. It's going to happen. So this is where, as an individual, you have to learn to bend or mold your feelings, ideas, attitudes, and beliefs for the greater good, for that greater goal. You want to allow it to be for the benefit of the group. Now, recognize that some conflicts may or may not surface. We know they're going to be there, but they don't necessarily surface, even though we need to acknowledge that they exist. Questions will arise about who is going to be responsible for what the rules are, who's going to be in charge. Because of the discomfort generated during the stage, some members may remain completely silent. They take a complete opposite step back to those who step up and attempt to dominate. In order for a group to progress to the next stage, group members must move from a testing and proving mentality to a coherent problem-solving mentality. The most important trait in helping groups to move on to the next stage seems to be the ability to listen. Some groups fail to move past stage 2 and they will disassemble at this point. It just falls apart. And it's usually because individual egos do not allow for group spirit to develop. Remember, Tuckman said that the groups need to acknowledge the concerns of each stage in order to go through it, pass it, and become successful. He based the progress of each stage on good communication skills and good conflict resolution skills. That's why we're going to be focusing on these a lot throughout this course, and we're going to get into it again later, and we're going to come back to it because it is such an important part in order to proceed through these stages. So if successful, you get to move on to stage 3, the norming phase. In the norming stage, interpersonal relations are characterized by cohesion. Group members are engaged in active acknowledgement of all members' contributions. This is where we have the praise and acknowledgement of you're doing a great job. Maybe you have some of that constructive criticism, all to build and help each other be more successful. Members are willing to change their preconceived ideas or opinions on the basis of facts presented by other members. They actively ask questions of one another, but more importantly, they listen. They listen to advice, take it into consideration, and use it to better themselves. In the norming stage, we don't have those personalities fighting to dominate. We have shared leadership. Members begin to know and identify with one another. The level of trust in their personal relations contributes to the development of group cohesion. It is during this stage of development, assuming that your group gets this far, that people begin to experience a sense of group belonging and a feeling of a relief as a result of resolving interpersonal conflicts. They've acknowledged the conflicts, they've dealt with them healthily, there was healthy conflict resolution, and now they're able to move on from there. The major task of stage 3, this norming phase, is communication between group members. There are shared feelings and ideas. You ask for and give feedback to one another. Explore actions related to the tasks. There's a feeling of security, that there's no judgment, that you have the safe space to expand, to grow. Every member feels secure in expressing their own view and discussing openly with the whole group. In this stage, creativity is high. If the stage of data flow and cohesion is attained by the group, then their interactions are characterized by openness and sharing of information on both a personal and task level. Everybody feels their worth. Then you get to move to stage 4, performing. It is definitely not reached by all groups. If group members are able to evolve to stage 4, their capacity, range, and depth of personal relations expand to true interdependence. This is now where we had that sneak preview of being confident in working independently or with a subgroup for the greater good, for the whole as a total unit. Your role adjusts to the changing needs of the group and individuals. Stage 4 is marked by the interdependence in personal relations and problem solving in the realm of task functions. So the group should be its most productive. Individual members have become self-assuring. The need for group approval is past. They are confident in their ability and their contributions. Members are highly task-oriented, highly people-oriented. There's unity, there's openness, there's transparency. Group identity is complete, group morale is high, and group loyalty is intense. The task function becomes genuine problem solving, leading to optimal solutions and optimum group development. There's support for experimentation in solving problems, and an emphasis on achievement. This then allows you to come to his newest stage of adjourning, where the task is complete. It was successful, everybody feels good, everybody has recognition for their achievement. So, how do we help ourselves to get to be that effective group? We know that we need to acknowledge feelings, we know that we need to focus on the shared goal. But other strategies for success include clearly identifying objectives. As early as possible, you need to meet to identify and set out your objectives. Remember, if you have clear goals, you can have clear results. It's important that from the very start, the exact purpose of the group is known. Diversity of backgrounds and experiences help to encourage and stimulate a broad range of ideas, paths from which to choose. Ultimately, the most appropriate course of action is selected. You want to meet regularly. A successful group should hold regular meetings to discuss progress and obstacles. You should encourage participation of every member to make sure that all of your resources are being used effectively. You want to identify roles and responsibilities. If you've got clear definition of every member's role and responsibility, then you have that accountability piece. You have that reassurance that every member is being used with their strengths and contributing. Unless everyone works hard and tries their best, then the group's full potential cannot be met and people get held back. You need to set out individual leadership roles for varying aspects of the project. Everybody needs to know what their role is and reach that achievement. You want to keep to a schedule time limits or constraints and keep them. We talked about how it's wonderful that a lot of these IL courses, there's no deadline, there's no pressure, you can work at your own pace. But on other hands, most people need a motivator. They need to have deadlines so that they don't procrastinate. You want to be successful by giving everybody a time frame to work towards. Lastly, and most importantly, keep it fun. Try at all times to have a fun atmosphere in the group. Encourage individual expression and participation from all members. You want to acknowledge differences and those conflicts openly. Encourage the entire team to work through problems together, honestly, and with that shared goal in mind. Understanding group dynamics can help leaders better prepare to organize successful groups. When you can see the benefits of a group, you can push for each individual to contribute accordingly so that you are most successful. That's all the time we have for today, but remember, we're going to have a special broadcast tomorrow to make up for Tuesday's class. Thanks so much for joining. Have a great one.